I don't know how this happened. It's March. Somehow I saw 10 movies in February. Sort of. We'll talk about it. What's up, Flick fans? Tomorrow is the Oscars. Tomorrow morning I have a special Daredevil reaction for you all. But right now, we've got to talk the newest movies that we saw in February. Now, normally, February, it's a shorter month. You get it? But even movie-wise, I always feel like I don't see a lot of movies in February, and this year is no different. If I missed a film, and there's actually plenty of smaller movies that I missed just because I've been so caught up in awards season, so let me know. And there's actually one of these 10 movies that came out in January, but I didn't get to see it, so I'm going to include that in today's list because I can. And I like 10 better than 9. If you enjoy these monthly rankings, let me know by dropping that like down below and leave your comments. I need to know your all's thoughts. What's the best movie of February? What was the worst? And what was the most disappointing? Because a lot of disappointments so far this year. Let's start with Kinda Pregnant, a film that I was just so excited for. Directed by Tyler Spindle, who did The Wrong Missy, The Outlaws, and Father of the Year. I will say this isn't his worst movie, and that's the thing about Kinda Pregnant. Look, it's bad. It's so bad, I didn't want to make a review.
This is bad. This is very bad.
And I even like doing reviews of bad movies, but I watched this and I said, I don't ever really want to think about that again, right? But it's not bad on the level of, okay, I hated it so much I want to make a rant about it. It's just, it's a whole bunch of nothing. And it's a whole bunch of nothing starring Amy Schumer. I like Jillian Bell. I enjoy Will Forte, even Damon Wayans Jr. And he was probably, every time he was on screen, not very much in this film, probably the standout here. But there's this weird romance between Schumer's character and Forte's character where she's lying to him the entire time. By the way, the premise of this movie is she lies about being pregnant because she wants to be pregnant, so it's a lie. And that's the premise of the film. And I could see how you could spin that into something funny if you didn't have Amy Schumer, if you didn't have these writers, this director, or I don't know, this came out 12 years ago, because that's when it felt like these types of comedies were hitting on a level that these movies just don't hit at anymore. I just don't understand why they couldn't give us one character in this film that I cared about at all. Even Will Forte, he's likable-ish, but he'll do stuff and say stuff sometimes. It's like, man, I don't, this entire thing. And the fact that Schumer's character just lies to everyone around her and she has no arc. I mean, by the time we get to the end, she's just like, oh man, it feels so bad. People finally found me out. And now you...
Oh, we're so sorry to hear about your brother that passed away. He gets 5 big booms. Boom! Boom!
I'm just sitting here going, you learned nothing and still things turned out well reasonably well for what she did to everyone. It's just, and I can understand what the thought process was. It's like, oh, she's going to lie, so she's causing hijinks for herself, and she's going to get in situations. It's going to be funny. Amy Schumer, it's so funny. It's not funny, but again, it's not so drastically terrible to where I can constantly make fun of it, because there are moments in this film where there's a little emotion or moments where you're like, that could have been good, and I kept saying that to myself, but to make these characters so daggone unlikable, it's just a whole lot of bleh. So I'm going to put Kinda Pregnant on the awful tier. Just know it's not bad enough to where I can go back to it and make fun of it. I want to forget it. Now, I understand. I cheated. I put a January movie on the February list, but a lot of people said, Austin, you got to watch one of them days. I watched it, and the fact that I was just ragging on comedy, we haven't gotten any great comedies over the last several years. First of all, that's a lie. We've gotten a couple, not as many as we used to get, but a couple. One of them days, it doesn't quite reach the highs that maybe I expected from the initial word of mouth, because there were points in this film I feel like it could have been executed a little better. But all in all, this is a well-shot, well-acted, good-looking movie. And what I mean by that, I'm watching it, I'm like, this is rock-solid cinematography. Like, the color grading here looks really good. They put a lot of effort into the filmmaking side of things, and it's very well paced, right? They're not going for laugh out loud, pure gag humor here. This is just a consistently funny movie about two girls who get in a bad financial situation. They've got to figure out how to pay, but they just keep getting caught up in the most ridiculous things that never feel, I mean, very over the top, but never feel so over the top that it goes outside of the reality bubble that we're living in this movie. And I'll tell you what, man, Keke Palmer, my God, let her live in comedy because she's so freaking good in this movie. So likable. I mean, granted, their characters do a bunch of dumb things all throughout the film, but there is a likability, a charm to her that is just so funny, man. She'll make you laugh when you feel like you're done laughing. More chuckles than belly laughs for me just because of the more relatable type situations. That's the kind of humor we're going for, but I really enjoyed living in this world and following these two around. By the way, I'll just have you know, I'm not super caught up in the music side of things in pop culture. I didn't know a lot about SZA. Like, I'd seen her name on songs that I like, and then I saw in the Super Bowl, I'm like, that's her. And then she was in this movie. So I've learned a lot about her, but man, she's really good in this movie. Like, for somebody, everybody's like, so how could you not? I have a daughter. I'm busy. She's really freaking good. Again, maybe I wanted it to be a little funnier based on initial expectations, but I'll tell you what, I had a good time with this. This is a good comedy after smack talking kind of pregnant. Feels pretty good. We go from buddy comedy to romance. How about Anya Taylor-Joy and Miles Teller in The Gorge? The Gorge was getting a lot of hype initially, and I'm thinking, man, this movie could be great. And when I saw that trailer, I'm like, what is this, a portal to hell? What are they doing here? But while I'm watching the movie, I'm starting to realize, okay, the big pit, the hole, is not what is super interesting here, because the first half of this movie, it's all about the romance. It's all about Miles Teller, Anya Taylor-Joy. They're on opposite sides of this big hole, and they're looking at each other with the binoculars like, I like this girl. And while it wasn't maybe moving at the pace that I initially expected, I actually enjoyed this a lot more than the second half because I like the chemistry, the tension, the romantic factor of it all. I really enjoyed them getting to know each other, even though they are so far apart in the beginning of this movie. And while it wasn't what I expected, I was kind of enjoying it. But the further we go along, the more the movie feels like it doesn't know what to do with everything. It's a cool world. I feel like the lore could have been awesome here, and what we get as build-up was really cool. But then what happens in the second act going into the third act. I'm just like, that's okay. They have something interesting, but I don't even think Scott Derrickson knows what this is. I don't think he was able to dive deep enough with the script to even unlock the potential that he had, because it goes from romance to a little bit of horror, a little bit of action, adventure, a shot very reminiscent to Mad Max, like so much happening. And it was fairly cool. But I enjoyed the beginning of it more, and I thought the genre-based stuff was less interesting than everything else going on. And so because of all of those factors, I'm going to throw The Gorge on the okay tier, because the beginning surprised me with the caveat of this could have and should have been so much better. Speaking of love, we got some romantic films that came out in the midst of Valentine's Day. Ke Huy Quan is awesome. I love him. Amazing in Everything Everywhere All at Once. Fantastic in Loki Season 2. I'm like, he finally gets to carry an action movie on his shoulders. And he does, but the rest of it's so bad, he doesn't do enough. Meaning, he's the best part of this movie by far and away. But the rest of the movie is pretty bad. The dialogue, the story, everything happening with his brother, Ariana DeBose. I needed some redemption for Kraven the Hunter. This is not that. She's just as bad here. No, that's not true. She was horrible in Kraven the Hunter. But once again, not good. And so I'm like, what happened to Oscar-winning actor Ariana DeBose? So bad. Marshawn Lynch is fun, because he's like owning the stupidity of it all. But this film spawns off into like 17 different subplots, relationships, one weird relationship that the movie kept trying to focus on. I'm like, I don't care about this. And you get those moments where Kwan's like kicking ass, but not until the end is his power fully unlocked. And I'm like, guys, like nobody, same producers, did this so much better than this film was able to do it, which is unfortunate for Key and very fortunate for Bob Odenkirk. But I was so excited for what ultimately felt like just a bland series of events with one super charming performance in the center. So yeah, I have to say, it goes on the bad tier, which I hate. Hard Eyes. Hard Eyes, once again, dealing with love here, keeping the trend going, is a romantic story with a relationship that I didn't think I'd care about at all, in the same vein as The Gorge, that I actually ended up really enjoying. And I'm not falling in love with these characters, but I'm sitting back going, this is so much better. Oh, wait, it's a horror movie. Because Hard Eyes shows up in the beginning, doesn't show up for 45 more minutes, comes in at the end, wrecks shop. Now, there's a series of twists with that character, and some things that happen in this movie are super obvious and on the nose. But I'll tell you this, the film treats everything almost in a satirical way, to where it is very purposefully over the top. When horror movies take themselves too seriously and are bad and do ridiculous things, then we have a problem. This movie has some bad elements, but I think they are purposefully bad, and it's not taking itself too seriously, reminiscent of a movie like Scream. Not saying it's as good as Scream, I'm just saying that's the tone. If you didn't pick up on that tone, you're going to hate this film. If you picked up on it and rolled with it like I was able to, you're going to have some fun. I had some fun. I was invested in the relationship. Our two lead actors are great, and Hard Eyes was actually entertaining, predictable, silly, ridiculous, but entertaining with some fun kills. So you know what? I thought this was a good time. I really did. Way more fun. I thought I would like Love Hurts more than this. It was the opposite. How about The Monkey, directed by Osgood Perkins? I was so pumped at the beginning of this because I loved the cameo we got. I loved the buildup of the story. I liked the ridiculousness, but it wasn't too ridiculous to where you didn't care about the characters. And when we get this story between these two twins as kids, I thought it was great. I was so hooked. Our young actor is great. Their relationship with their mom was fantastic. I really enjoyed the insanity of it all, what this monkey does, how you're trying to figure out how it works as our young boys are. And Theo James as our narrator was great, but then we fast forward to, 25 years later when it is Theo James, and the story wasn't nearly as impressive. And it starts to go off the rails in numerous directions. And I'm okay with this movie being over the top. I expected that. Watch the trailer. The trailer gives you all you need to know. But with a film being over the top like this, you have to give us characters that you care about. And I cared about the kids, maybe because it had that it feel to it, which makes sense. It's Stephen King, right? But Osgood Perkins, and I understand what he was doing, taking his past into account, taking all of these themes and lessons to learn along the way. Death is random. It could happen to anybody. And in this movie, it happens to pretty much everybody. And that was just pure madness. But I stopped caring about what was going on. I wasn't laughing at what was initially funny, because the less I cared about the characters, the more I started to just kind of scratch my head and say, all right, I just need something that keeps me hooked. And I'm not going to say this movie's boring, because it's not boring, all right? But it was more so I wasn't invested by the end. And if you want me to expand on that, I went into detail in my review, but I don't want to waste time on it. I'm going to put The Monkey on the meh tier. I am so sorry. I feel like a lot of people are going to be let down by that. Next up, we're sticking with the love theme, because I love Paddington, okay? Paddington 2 is a spectacular movie. Paul King and what he does with this franchise, his direction, his look, his feel, his very artistic style that I kind of figured I would miss in this movie. I definitely did miss it in this movie. Now, that is not me saying this is bad by any means. I believe Paddington 3 is still really fun. And I say this in my review, it's a better Jungle Cruise movie than Jungle Cruise. It has an Indiana Jones feel to it. They are on an adventure. They're integrating things here that I never pictured being in a Paddington movie, from this villainous performance by Antonio Banderas to just an awesome time on screen with Olivia Colman. My goodness, man. And there are some things that are replaced here along with Paul King as director, and I don't feel like this director specifically has as good of a feel for Paddington as King had, but there were scenes where I sat back and said, that's the Paddington that I know, in the style that I know him, and still managed to provide me some amazing moments. And some moments, I mean, the highs of Paddington 3 reach the highs of something like Paddington 1. It never quite reaches the level of Paddington 2, but I believe this is a good sequel nonetheless, and it's going on the good tier, even though, again, elements definitely fell short of expectations. This one may surprise you all. I watched a movie called Cleaner, starring Daisy Ridley, directed by Martin Campbell, who brought us Casino Royale and Green Lantern. When a group of activists take over an energy company's gala, seizing 300 hostages, you have this window cleaner suspended. Oh, so it's Die Hard. Oh, okay. So this is a spin. This is Daisy Ridley's Die Hard. I mean, basically, right? She's a window cleaner. Everything's happening inside. She's trying to warn the people outside. There's a point where she's like sending a message in fire. And I'm like, you're going to die if you don't. But she has a very particular set of skills. Liam Neeson style. Bruce Willis style. And it's very reminiscent, right? It is the B version of Die Hard. Nowhere near as good on any of these levels. But I'll tell you what. Okay. Say what you will about Green Lantern, and I've said plenty. Martin Campbell can be a capable filmmaker, especially when you look at what he did with Bond, and I felt that at times here, to where I was expecting Cleaner to be awful, because I'd never heard of this movie. It randomly showed up in my theater, and I'm like, yeah, I want to get to 10 movies in February, so let's go watch it. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen. Now, it's a ripoff of Die Hard, starring Daisy Ridley, but Ridley's charming. There is a relationship with her brother that I really thought they could have expanded upon, and they never do. Some things that they try to give our characters at the beginning, I'm like, I don't care, just get to the craziness, and they do, and it's fun. Got a little action in there, not a lot. Takes a bit to get to it, but I found it to be something that was paced fairly well for the type of movie that it is. I was never bored, okay? And they kept the rampant action even with the ridiculousness happening that didn't piss me off nearly as much as I thought it would. So it's not a good movie by any means, and it's a Die Hard ripoff, but I'm going to put Cleaner on the meh tier. Better than expected. Something that was not better than expected was Captain America. And I wore the shirt in honor because I forgot to wear it in my review, and I'm stupid. I got a Captain America shirt, didn't wear it. Listen, I was rooting for this one. I wanted to see what Anthony Mackie could do. Now, I'm always going to stand by my boy Steve. All right, Steve Rogers, my favorite superhero maybe ever. I love him as Captain America. I love Chris Evans as Captain America. And I'm always just like, every time I go back and watch Winter Soldier, this is just impressive work. So when they captured those vibes in that initial trailer, I got super excited. But you watch this film, it's going to sound bad. You can tell it's made from the director of Cloverfield Paradox, but there's also shades of the director of Loose in there, because Loose was a very good movie, to where some of the more dramatic moments, the tension between specifically Mackie and Harrison Ford, are handled really well. And I'll tell you what, Harrison Ford was great in this film. And I can't put a lot of the blame on Anthony Mackie, man. As much as people want to say outside noise, this and that, yeah, he's never going to measure up to Steve Rogers. Well, that's one of the themes in the movie that I thought they could have even expanded upon in a different way. Now, they do the repetitive thing that they did in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, to where they said, you're not Steve Rogers. All right, we've done that before. It's the same thing. Can we do it, but do it in a different light? Can we switch it up and do it in a different way? And there were directions I thought this film was going to go at several points to where it never went. I'm just like, missed opportunity. It's such a safe film, but it's a safe film that requires fans watching this film to watch like 7 other projects. That's over-exaggerating. But Falcon and the Winter Soldier, The Incredible Hulk, The Eternals-ish, sort of, kind of, all the other Captain America movies, obviously, which people watched anyway. But it's like, man, if I've got to do that much homework, and obviously I'm not talking about me, but the more general audience member, like, I have friends, not in the online movie space, in my real world, because real world's different than this place, that said, you know what, I don't want to watch it because I've not seen the other ones. I didn't watch the TV show, or I don't remember Incredible Hulk, or what is an Eternal? And so I really think that hurt the box office, especially second weekend with that massive drop, and, you know, the lowest cinema score in MCU history. And I think that's a bit much. Okay, this is not the worst movie in MCU history, but it's so bleh and so bland, and I'm sure certain general audience members were confused about characters, to where, you know, ultimately it doesn't amount to much. And I hate to say that, because the third act was really fun. Incredible Hulk, or Red Hulk, is really fun. Visuals aside, what happens is great. He looks great. Everything else looks bad. But all in all, this is just a meh, forgettable, okay-ish MCU movie, but I can't even personally get it to okay. There has been worse, a lot worse, but I'm going meh tier. And finally, a movie that I did not know existed. until like 3 weeks ago when I randomly saw it made $1 billion in China. And I'm just sitting here like, what? $1 billion in one country? That's not real. That's not a real report, but it was a real report. And then I see this thing called Ne Zha, and I'm like, oh, wait, I've first of all, I didn't know how to pronounce it at first. But then I remember something coming out years ago. I go back, I watch the 2019 movie. It's really good, but there are things about it that I didn't love, and I hear how epic a masterpiece was. And, you know, when these big films come out internationally, I hear that a lot. I heard it about a couple movies last year. They weren't as good. Some of them were, but this is different. This movie is great. This is an awesome, climactic, grand spectacle of a cinematic viewing that, frankly, I didn't know existed, but also I didn't know could be achieved by something that I just jumped into. But the feeling I got while watching this was incredible. And the lore here is spectacular. Like, we're dealing with heavens and spirits and guardians and essentially angels, the way religion factors into this. Like, I can't explain to you what this movie is about in this video. This is not the place. Without just having to go on Wikipedia and read the whole thing. Like, there's so much in that first movie that I believe you have to watch. And then when you get into the second one, man, the payoff is insane. Like, seeing Ne Zha slowly morph into what you know that he's capable of and seeing this legend come to light is the coolest thing. And yeah, there's some slower moments in part two, right? We're getting to where we need to go. And I mentioned this in my review, some juvenile humor, more so in the first, less so in the second. That doesn't quite work, but I believe the kids are going to enjoy the fart jokes, the pee jokes. There's a pee joke in there. Okay, but I still had a good time. I was laughing along the way. I love these characters, but the battles, man, the battle of the guy going underwater and moving in the electric current, the battles at the end, it's very reminiscent to Avengers Endgame. It doesn't have quite that impact on me watching those movies for 20 years, but I could see it. I could see a fan since 2019 feeling some type of way while watching this. So it isn't the perfect animated film, but it's a grand, epic, blockbuster spectacle that I had a heck of a time with while watching. And so I am putting this grand Chinese animation sequel, whatever you want to call it, on the great tier, the best movie of February. I'm stunned. I can't believe it. Before I rank these 10 films, again, I need your thoughts, comments. What movies did I miss? A couple this weekend. My boy FlickPick was texting me about one that I want to see. So I'll definitely try to see them. And who knows, maybe put them in March. Let me know if I should, or is that cheating? Did I cheat today? Don't tell my wife. At the bottom, kind of pregnant, kind of sucks. On the bad tier, sorry, Ke Huy Quan, love hurts, really hurt me. On the meh tier, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I am keeping Captain America in that spot. And this is insane. I had more fun with Cleaner than I expected. It's not good, but it wasn't bad. And there's just parts of these other two movies that piss me off more, preventing them from being great films, whereas I watch Cleaner, I'm just like, yeah, okay. It's not even okay, but there it is. On the next tier, okay, is The Gorge in the 5 spot. Love Hurts is fun, but more in a fun but flawed kind of way, so I definitely got to put Paddington above that, but surprisingly, even to me, One of Them Days was just such a fun time. I'm going to say that over Paddington 3. Paddington, I'm sorry, but the number one movie of February is the massive Chinese blockbuster that is about to hit 2 billion worldwide. Like, we're talking Avatar numbers. And every theater I'm seeing it in the United States, like my theater was sold out. If you get a chance, the first one I believe is free on YouTube in certain countries. I saw it free on the Roku channel. So if you have the Roku channel, go watch it for free. And then if you find it, go check it out. But it's also Oscar weekend, so I know y'all gonna be watching a lot of Oscar movies. Dune Part 2. Pretty please. Thank you so much for watching this video. Tomorrow, we got the big guns. My Daredevil reaction, my Oscar reaction, followed by many days of Oscar coverage. I'll see you later.